What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius and Bruce. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now, listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I say, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So, come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to this episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius and boy, do we have an amazing guest. Oh my God. The veteran voice of the Octagon, Mr. Bruce Buffer, is in the house. Bruce.
Hey, Darius, how are you?
Oh, man, I'm freaking awesome right now. Glad to have you on the show, my friend.
My pleasure.
Do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get running?
Whatever you got to do, you do it.
Let's do it. So for listeners who are new to the show, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. People who live their passions and those creating greatness in the world and doing so despite the odds. And my main man, Bruce, here is neither short of passion nor greatness. I'm going to say this. So I have been a UFC fan since UFC 1. I'm old enough where I was young enough where I wasn't supposed to watch it, but I watched it anyway with my friends. And so I'm a huge fan of UFC, been going to fights for many years. And man, you're like a staple of that system. I mean, you're just like the voice of the Octagon, as we said before. So man, it's just such an honor to have someone of your status and of your accomplishment on the show. I think you really are someone that really exemplifies what we try to do here at the Greatness Machine. So man, really pumped to have you here. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you. My pleasure. No, it's a pleasure to be on. And thank you for all your kind words. What can I say?
Yeah, no,
I'm
generous with them. I'd like to do your formal bio for a second, but it's funny. We have a mutual friend in common. Oh my gosh, JT Fox. So,
JT, right.
Yeah, so you had done some stuff with him on Clubhouse, and I was friends with him through Clubhouse, and so I actually heard when you would come and did some stuff with him on there and talked about your entrepreneurial background, which I thought was fascinating. I didn't know that you had such an entrepreneurial background, and would love to kind of dive into it a little bit on the show because we a lot of our listeners are CEOs and entrepreneurs who are really trying to level up in their lives. But for listeners who are maybe not as familiar with your work, you have to be living on the moon or under a rock somewhere. Bruce is the veteran voice of the Octagon, the UFC. Started off at UFC 8 in 1996, president and CEO at Buffer Enterprises, host of It's Time podcast with TJ DeSantis, and the co-founder of Millions.co. So, man, I'd love, here at the Greatness Machine, we love origin stories. I'd love if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of your background, a little bit of your origin story, what got you to where you're getting to now.
Well, I grew up in Philadelphia and Texas as a kid, and at 15, I moved out to Malibu, California with my family. My dad ran Fortune 500 companies, and he was the one that was my role model and basically gave me my entrepreneurial attitude to the point where out of school, I started working in the telemarketing industry and at 1975, 76, and I was making incredible money and started my own company at 19, never worked for anybody since then, except for people like UFC. And I've owned a variety of different companies from import export to security alarm camera companies to doing motivational speeches. I ran collectible gun shows. I've just done so many different things. And it was always learning how to hone my teeth, selling, talking to people, presenting myself, and motivating people to be the best they can be and training salespeople. So I was involved in the business world in quite a number of different businesses until I met my long lost half brother, Michael Buffer, the legendary Let's Get Ready to Rumble announcer around the area of 1990 or so. And then eventually 4 years later became his, give or take, became his manager and business partner, and which created a foray into the sports and entertainment world where I created my career in the UFC. And I've been announcing the UFC now for over 27 years.
So you were doing biz, and in 89 is when you were introduced to your half brother, Michael. And were you still doing the business stuff when you started managing him, or was it kind of an overlap between the two? How did that transition happen for you?
It was an overlap between the two, but what happened is that I had an epiphany in 1992 when I was at a fight with him, and I went back to my room and started writing incessantly pages of notes on how I would run his career, what we would do, trademark this phrase properly, make it part of American culture, put it on the tip of everybody's tongue. And that's what we did with Let's Get Ready to Rumble. And I wasn't concerned about myself other than doing everything I could to put him in all the big events. But I knew I wanted to announce, but we agreed I wouldn't do boxing. And then when the UFC came along, being a martial artist since I was 12, that was my world. So I had to get involved.
And so was this thing in your family where you're like, oh man, we just have these badass voices that like, was it like a voice-a-thon behind the scenes? What was going on with that?
Not really. It's not like pass the salt, all that yelling at each other. We'll both admit to you that my dad probably had the best voice of all of us.
Really?
Yeah, he was a Marine drill instructor for 13 years and served in World War II in Korea. And I'd walk in a room and he'd say, son, shoulders back, chest out. Let him know you're in the room. Project your voice. So training from early on.
And so when your brother, obviously he was making his way in the boxing world. Were you, being a martial artist, were you I mean, obviously, especially if you look back in like the early to mid 90s, like UFC was very, very different than it is now. I mean, it really kind of came into its own like right around the time they, I guess probably in the early 2000s is when I felt like it really like kind of blew up right after they did the what do you call it, the reality show, right?
Right.
And so for you, when you were in those early days, how did you transition out of your businesses into that? Was that something you were doing kind of like a side gig where you're like, this is my passion, I'm doing the business thing too? How did that work for you?
No, I kept it all going. I mean, I run a number of different businesses. I have products that have just hit the market recently, with more to come. I've got, I've been involved in managing my brother. I was still tapering down the other businesses. I basically sold them and quit with the money I had in the bank to go into this business of sports and entertainment. And my whole goal was to make Michael richer, more famous than he ever dreamed, and hopefully myself in the process. And he said, well, how are you going to do all that? And I said, I don't know, but if I'm going to give all this up, you better believe I'm going to figure it out. And it's just been it's been an evolutionary process ever since. I've had my hands in a number of different businesses surrounding our announcing, our brands, whether it's video games, toys, movies. I mean, I did a movie with Warner Brothers called Ready to Rumble, had one of the biggest selling video games ever back in 2099, called Ready to Rumble Boxing. Um, I can go on and on and on, just so many different things. Bucket lists being done, from Super Bowl commercials to uh, I can't even remember half the stuff. I got to write another book to
Yeah.
remember, but that's what entrepreneurs do, and you just got to manage your business properly. I'm very proud of the products I currently have in the market, which you may be familiar with. If you want to see them, like Puncher's Chance, my bourbon.
Oh yeah, nice.
This is we've won 10 gold medals. We're called the top 5 best sipping bourbon in America at its price range. You can go to puncherschancebourbon.com to check it out, but it's in stores all across the country. And we're going into England, into Canada, and Australia. And I just came out with my new single barrel version called the Undisputed.
I love it.
And it's selling like hotcakes. That won a platinum award right out of the gate.
That's amazing.
And I'm coming out with a line of toiletries, starting with my cologne, the It's Time cologne. And this is the #1 selling cologne on Amazon in America, and in the top 5 in the UK. It's really taken off, and it'll be followed by body wash and deodorants and body sprays and facial wash and a whole bunch of stuff. And then the big one that's going to be coming out, and I won't bore you any more than this, is my all natural energy drink.
Yeah.
Hydration drink. This is incredible. And this will be in 30 countries plus around the world within the next 6 months. So these are the businesses I'm working on, along with products surrounding the Let's Get Ready to Rumble brand. And, when you're a brand builder, you work from a base and you build everything out of the base.
Yeah, it seems like you're super early in this like world of brand building. I mean, obviously personal brand building. I think that I mean, it's like clearly you and your brother have created these brands for yourself through the fight world. Now bringing it to mainstream and product from a productization standpoint. What are your thoughts on when you start thinking of the future of product is around personal brand? Where's your head go on that?
Well, you just got to pick the products that basically fit your brand. You don't want to be a whore for the money. You want to pick properly. I turn down deals all the time. I'm a spokesperson for a number of different companies, from Rubet Gaming, an international gaming company, Kudo Popcorn, which you'll see a lot about coming up, which is a sponsor of the UFC. I have another company called Millions.co you mentioned at the top of the show, where we teach branding and marketing to athletes. You can go there and buy merchandise from the Shevchenko sisters, from a ton of different UFC athletes that basically is even cooler than the UFC merchandise that's being sold, or as cool. And you can do videos with them, like on Cameo, where I'm one of the top 10% filmers on Cameo, which keeps me quite busy. I do a lot of videos and a lot of audios for weddings and birthdays and championship introductions and business videos. But that's all built around the brand. It's what I do. So
And what do you think? Like, I'm an entrepreneur. I've built some pretty large companies, and my big belief is that your values and your purpose have to be really kind of the foundation of the brand. How do you kind of think of that for yourself?
well, your values have to be, like I said, you don't want to be a whore for the money.
Right.
Excuse my French. You want to pick properly. You want to deal with the best products. You want to deal with the best people, and you want to be the best you can be. And you
Yeah.
want to believe and have passion for what you're doing. If you have passion for what you're doing and you can monetize your passion, then you're working and building a lifestyle, not just waking up and saying, "Oh, I have to go to work." You know,
Right.
I got 8 to 10 hours today to work. I mean, you're building a lifestyle, and it can get overwhelming at times, but that's where you got to do what you got to do.
What do you so like going back to the UFC, obviously you've been in there for, over 2 decades. What's been like when you start thinking of the transition you saw and your belief in that product? Obviously you came in as an announcer and it really just took off, right? When you start looking back at your career at the UFC and the projection of that business, what were you thinking during your ride and watching that happen? How did you see that come to life in your own world?
I knew it was going to be the biggest thing in fighting sports, but it was raw and it was a spectacle that became a sport. And I stuck with it through thick and thin, and working for the short paychecks, the roach coach motels, you know, traveling everywhere, doing everything until it built to where it is today. And it's just the biggest thing happening in fighting sports, barring one or two boxing matches a year. Everything I thought was going to happen to it happened, and it's going completely according to schedule.
I love that, man. If you were to say like your biggest surprise from that experience, what would be maybe potentially your biggest surprise?
I'm really not. Everything came true. From
Uh,
Madison Square Garden to being all over the world. I mean, the biggest surprise, of course, was the turn point for the UFC, which was when Dana White and the Fertitta brothers bought it at its lowest point from Robert Meyer, was the previous owner. And in turn, their passion and their monetary abilities to back it and the business acumen that they had brought it to where we are today. It's a big team effort.
yeah, I mean, it shows, right? When you start to see, I mean, even if you go like to the announcers and having Rogan involved and the way that's handled, it seems like it's a family that's really stuck together. What do you when you start looking at the future of combat sports and from your experience being entrenched in that world, what do you think the future looks like compared to today? What would be the biggest difference you might see in your mind?
Oh, I just think more people coming into MMA, appreciating the sport. Um, you've got new generations being born, every year. And when I go to a show and they go, "I've been watching you since I was 10. I've been watching you since I was 5," it makes me feel a little bit older, but at the same time, you realize that new fans are coming on all the time. And MMA, unlike boxing, except for some of the influencers boxing, it has captured the hearts and minds of the 18 to 34-year-old generation, which in turn is now in their 40s and 50s from when they watched it when I started. So it encompasses everything, male and female. Fox Sports did a study, and over 75% of males 18 to 34 are fans of the UFC. That's huge. And that
Yeah.
was that was like 10 years ago they said that.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I started going to my first fight I went to was Liddell Couture 2 in Vegas, like in 90 what '06 was.
Oh
And my
yeah,
brother.
when Randy spanked Liddell, or no, he spanked Tito. That was right.
Yeah, no, Liddell knocked him out, and I think it was
Yeah.
the one where Liddell won. And my brother and I gave it to each other for Christmas. I have a twin brother, so that was our present to each other. And we had front row seats, and it was an amazing fight, as you know. And so what I was going to say was I went to a lot of fights during that early 2000s time frame until up until actually the last fight I went to was Frank Mir and Brock Lesnar, where you did the buffer 180, buffer 360.
Yeah, UFC 100. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So I got kids then, and I'm like, oh, it's hard for me to go to the fights anymore. But one of the biggest thing I saw, one of the biggest transitions I saw, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, was that there was a lot more females at the fights. Like when I used to go to the fights in 2003, 4, and 5, like it was mostly men in the audience, and then it really did it became much more like going to a professional sports football game. Do you think that was because of the mainstream aspect of UFC really going into the zeitgeist as a mainstream sport. What are your thoughts on that?
I think so. You know, the female fan base is very strong. They'll come 3, 4 deep with each other, and they understand the sport. They understand the fighters. They understand the moves. This is when you know that you've really got the hearts and minds, because, you know, obviously, you know, they're looking at two great looking guys beating the hell out of each other. You know, that can be
Right.
exciting to women, but they actually recognize the skill factor and the fact that women's MMA is so strong and made so strong by Ronda Rousey and the great Amanda Nunes and others that built the sport. I mean, women can now share the same excitement, the same camaraderie that men can.
Yeah.
So it appeals to everybody.
Yeah, it's an amazing sport, man. It's really cool just to watch the athleticism come to a new level. I wanted to, talk about one thing though. In doing research for you on the show, man, you're a renaissance man. World rated poker player. You're doing the voice thing. The big announcer for one of the biggest sports in the world. Entrepreneur. Like on paper, like you're kind of like the world's most interesting man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
What do you think? What is that like? Like, is that you just like, hey man, I'm gonna live my passions unabashedly? Like, how does one get to live that life? Because I think a lot of people don't necessarily, I maybe know what I'm saying right now or appreciate what it takes to put yourself out there in that way. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
You know, life is all life by design. And again, follow your passions, but stay focused, stay present so you can do each one properly and not lose track of what you're doing. It's very easy to do three things and do them all half-ass, right? So side yourself with good people, delegate where you can, but recognize what you're truly passionate about and you're willing to put the work into to make happen. In my situation, I can side myself with companies that have incredible marketing teams and product development and everything else. And I handpick and choose who I deal with.
So,
So very careful. It's like being, if you ever look at a war film and all the generals are watching over the map and moving the pieces, that's pretty much what it's like.
and
Man,
do you think of it like the strategy of your business in that way, or your life in general?
life in general, sometimes I'm nonstop from the moment I get up in the morning, you know?
How do you maintain like the capacity for that? What are some of your secrets?
Um, again, if you have passion for something, it should maintain itself. When the bad times happen or the rough times happen, your passion gets you through it. It's
Hmm.
like Rocky said, if you get knocked down on the canvas, you want to get up and start punching harder than ever moving forward. So um, just stay on top of it, believe in yourself. I have a theory called BSC, which is ball, skill, and confidence. And you need all of that to sit down at the blackjack table, at the desk, at the meeting. But you also need a 10, 20% luck factor, you know, even in a poker hand, no matter how good you play.
And what's your perspective? So obviously, luck, we can't control luck. We can control the other part. Is
You
that
control
really
the
the
other part, and the little bit of luck factor comes in. But timing is everything.
And do you
Very
think
important.
that for yourself, when you start thinking of timing, like obviously, like being too early or being too late can put you out of business. What when you start to like try to gauge that for yourself? Is this a numbers game? Is this a strategy game? How do you put luck, timing, all these things together when you try to be successful?
I'm past the point of a numbers game, you know, because I try to make the numbers less, not throw
Right.
too much on the wall. Um, just try to pick and choose. I mean, just hopefully you're making the right decisions, you know, and you have to learn when to say no. You know,
Yeah.
no to yourself, no to something. Just don't grab everything. I've made that mistake in the past, and I've learned to tone it down. And you know, just focus and do what it takes to get it done. Don't wait for things to happen. You have to make them happen. You know, be diligent and believe in yourself. It's all very basic principles.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I mean, like, I think people tend to overcomplicate success, and I mean, what I'm hearing you say is like, be focused, work hard, play smart, the things that are easy to say, hard to do, right? I find a lot. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm now in private equity, and they get shiny object syndrome, and I'm like, hey, dude, listen, stay fucking focused on the one thing in front of you. Like you barely have a business here. Like, why are we trying to start four other businesses? I mean, has that been a big part of your success? Is that focus in the things that are working? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, focus. Focus is very important because if you lose focus, then you lose touch of reality,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't stay on top of it and you let it just roll along, unless you've got good business partners or delegate it properly, whatever you're doing, it could fall apart.
Yeah.
You got to stay on top of it.
How do you, speaking of partners, because I think partnership can be delicate, and you've obviously picked some really good partners over the years. What are your thoughts on that? Like how what served you and what has worked for you, maybe what hasn't worked for you from a partnership standpoint?
Partnerships that lie to you or steal from you. You don't recognize it up front. It's like a marriage or like a relationship. It takes time to get full understanding of everything going on. Um, I've had a couple situations that I was very surprised by, I won't mention names, but a very prominent individual who's on TV every week,
Yeah.
but didn't fulfill their end of the picture, and I got too much caught up in their image, right, and what they do than the reality of how they do it. So you got to stay on top of everything, you know, and question it. If there's something to
Yeah.
be questioned, question it.
Yeah.
Don't let it get out of hand. Unless you're just
I lo-
collecting a paycheck and doing your part, take the paycheck.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I know. I look. I appreciate. I know you're short on time, so I want to. I want to respect that. A couple things. You have the It's Time podcast with TJ DeSantis. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
It's a podcast I started like 16 years ago, even before Joe Rogan started his, but I was never big into monetizing it. Joe was actually one of my original guests. And it's a lifestyle show we do once a week. You can watch it on my YouTube channel, Spotify, all those places. And we have guests from all walks of life, actors, Josh Brolin, you name it, on down to UFC fighters, to entrepreneurs, uh, even had porno stars on to see what makes them tick, all different kinds of stuff. So
I
very,
love
we
that.
we cover the news. It gives me a chance to rant and rave, and to just talk about what's going on in the world.
I love that,
And I,
man.
and I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Two quick questions, and then I'll let you run. You did the main announcement for Andrew Schultz's Infamous. I'm a huge Andrew Schultz fan. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
That was great. That's one of the best announcements I ever made. I love that.
Yeah,
Andrew's a great guy. We put that together. He produced that really, really well. That was really cool.
I thought that was a pretty cool entrepreneur story. He got turned down, like basically Netflix, and I think it was Hulu or somebody basically said, "Oh, it was Amazon." They said, "Hey, look, you got to cut these jokes from your bit, or else we're not going to do your show." And he told him to f off, and then self-produced the show and
Excuse me.
crushed it,
Yep.
like
Crushed
absolutely
it.
crushed it. Were you going to be involved either way? Were you involved before that went down with those streaming networks, or was it after the fact?
I can't answer that because that probably happened during the process. We met, we became friends, and then we did it. And I think he pursued me after he had it all in place when he was about to film it.
Yeah, that was cool. That was one of my favorite stand-ups I've seen last year. And when you came on, I was like, oh man, Andrew Schultz is the man, dude. Like the
Yeah,
good
I
work
love
there.
stand-up comedy. I love stand-up comedy.
Are you
Big time.
doing stuff with other stand-ups right now too, or like how?
I've done with Brendan Schaub, um, other comedians over the years. I even had my own comedy show before COVID called the It's Time Comedy Night at the Laugh Factory here in Hollywood, where I hosted it. If I had time, I would still do it again. I love that. It's a great night out. I mean, comedy is just, listen, make them laugh, make them laugh. That's secret to everything. You want a secret of dating a girl, make her laugh, or go to a comedy show and watch her laugh. Whatever, just make them laugh.
I love that, man. Look, here at the Greatness Machine, we always end on the greatness question, and again, I want to respect your time. I know you're you're short on that, so we really want to know what makes people their best. And the question we always ask everybody, and I apologize, I usually start the show to give you this before, what we were running a little quick here is, so I'm going to start now. What is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
That's an interesting question. Number one barrier. You know, the number one barrier is yourself. It's walking up to that door, to knock on the door, to dial that phone number, to let people know you exist, to ask for the sale, right? You got to get out there. You got to make things happen. So the biggest barrier is your own self-motivation. And that's why you need to believe in yourself, feel passionate about what you're doing. The more passionate you are about it, the harder you're going to go after it. The smarter, rather, you're going to go after it. It's not about working hard. It's about working smart. Okay? Oh, I worked hard. I did 16 hours. Not like I've never said that too. I've done this. No, but did you work smart? If you give somebody 8 hours to do a 4-hour job as an employee, they're going to take 8 hours. If you give them 4 hours to do an 8-hour job, or it means their job, they're going to get it done in 4 hours, right? It's all about how you project yourself and how you believe in yourself and how honest you are with yourself. And don't set false goals. Oh, I want to make $1 million. Have you even made 100,000 yet?
Yeah.
You want to make 1 million? You want to make 100? Have you made 50? Well, make your 50 and then the hundreds in focus. Make 100, then a $250,000 in focus. Make $250,000, then you're on your way. See where it goes. Be realistic with yourself.
Love it, man. Words of wisdom. So, Bruce, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. You got a ton of stuff going on. What if people want to connect with you, learn more about the stuff you're working on? What's the best way for them to do so?
Follow me on Instagram at Bruce Buffer UFC, or my Facebook page, Bruce Buffer. Everything's pretty much there. All the products, everything happening, and I always go to brucebuffer.com. I've got the special offers for if you're a UFC fan, where they introduce you like a champion, audio or video. And it'll be just like you're in the championship fight in the UFC with an arena background, the whole bit, and weddings. And like I said, birth of babies. My partner, Kristen, and I get tears in our eyes at some of the thank you notes we get. And we get proceeds to charity, partial proceeds and all. And I make it very affordable compared to what people would want to pay me. I don't want to gouge anybody. I just want to make people happy.
That's cool, man.
And practice a 3-foot theory. Treat everybody around you with respect. Treat people the way you want to be treated, and be a role model to your sphere of influence. That's the biggest advice I can give anybody out there.
I love that, man. You call it the 3-foot rule. Is that right? I love that, man. Man, you are a gentleman. You're a badass, Bruce. Like, this has been a really cool experience. I know we were short on time, and I wish I could have more of it with you, but I know you're a busy guy.
I apologize for that. I'm sorry.
No. It's all good, man. Look, thank you so much for coming on the show. You are the man. Much appreciation to you, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate it very, very much. And again, check out Puncher's Chance. We're going to have a contest. I think we got one coming up. If it hasn't already happened, we'll fly you to the UFC. So everybody just go check out puncherchancebourbon.com. I'm telling you, if you like bourbon, this is the sweet nectar of the bourbon gods.
All right, man.
I'm all about health. I'm not telling you to drink all the time. You'll be drinking like Buff. You'll be smell like Buff, and pretty soon you'll get energy like Buff. I'm just joking around with you. Hashtag Buff Life. Just joking around.
Bruce, you're a badass, my friend. Thank you so much. Everyone, peace out. We love you.
You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on, so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.